All right, you are listening to the virtual voice of Mr. Moss, and since I am unable to be here today due to being forced to go to a meeting that I need to attend, we need to make sure that we aren't getting behind. So Tuesday, today, as you can see, today's goals. The first thing that we need to do is to set up your vocab menu, flashcard menu homework page. This is going to be number 5. Please take about 5 minutes to get that set up and get that into your spiral, or get it into your binder and work on that and make sure that that is going to be due on Friday. So take a few minutes in the beginning to get that done. The next thing we need to get done is obviously you'll be on the iPads, but we need to get page 51 and 52 and 53 in your spiral completed so that we don't get behind, which is going to be the seeds of representative government as well as the plant of representative government. And then lastly, I'd like to get into, if we could, or second to last, I'd like to get into how England ruled the colonies, which is going to be on page 53 of your spiral. And then also I would like for us to, if there is time, lastly, if there is time, that includes putting away your iPad into the correct slot and make sure that it is plugged in. Please go to page 49 in your spiral, and I'd like for you to read your story that you wrote on Friday on the middle passage to 3 different people, 3 different students, and make sure that when you read it to them, make sure that they signed your story. I want a signature there that they heard your story that you read to them. If there's time for that, which I'm not sure if there's going to be, but I would like for you to try to get that done if possible. So lastly, the last thing that I would like for you to do, if there is time, is to read your story to 3 different people in the class. All right, as you can see on the board, please take about 5 minutes or so to set up your homework for this week that I would like to be turned in on Friday. Please don't forget to review your rap as well tonight and throughout the rest of this week. Please make sure that you indicate that this is number 5. This is going to be number 5 for this week. I would like for you to do 3 new vocab menu from your flashcards. Remember also what I would like to say, that this is due on Friday. So please make sure that you get this turned in so that you don't acquire any zeros in the grade book. Choose 3. I would like for at least one of those to be new. So try to do one that you have not done before in the past in the gold section, or one that you did not do last week. Remember also to use new flashcards. Please do not use the same red flashcards that you used last week. Use the different flashcards for this coming week so that you become an expert on these red flashcards. Keep practicing, keep practicing, keep practicing. Please, also one more quick little thing, please don't forget to add your name and period in the top right corner as well. And don't forget, I know I've said this before, but this is due on this coming Friday. You can't afford zeros. Make sure that you are working hard to get this completed. Don't wait to the last minute. This is something that you can also work on in focus that will really, you can use your time wisely during the focus period. All right, make sure on page 51 and 52, I do realize that we should have gotten pretty close to getting this done on Friday on page 51 and 52. Make sure it looks something like this. It should be drawn very large so that you can write notes inside the seeds on page 51. And then also make sure that the leaves are drawn very large something like on page 52, so that you can write inside of the leaves. I believe that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 leaves on page 52. Make sure you please remember to title this as well too, How the Seeds of Self-Government Grew in the Colonies on page 52. And then on page 51, make sure that you have Seeds of Representative Government titled on there. I would prefer you do this with marker. Please don't do this with pencil. You will be taking your notes with a pen or pencil inside of the seeds and on top of the leaves, but please make sure that you are doing the 51 and 52 in marker. As I sent out yesterday a remind to bring markers as well as earbuds. Hopefully you did that. All right, real quickly, you're probably going to have to hit pause as I am walking you through this on page 53. This section on page 53 is how the British ruled their colonies. There is, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes. One is yellow. It should look exactly like this. This is also found, if you would like to get the notes, you can find the notes on the last of this message, last of this lesson that you are listening to right now. You can also get this is also available on Canvas on the 8th grade spiral. But make sure page 53 looks exactly like this. All right, as you can see from this particular slide, you will see that not only did the colonists bring with them, such as Jamestown, gold finding materials and tools and other things with them, such as their religious beliefs, but the English colonists, as they were colonizing the 13 colonies, also brought with them a firm belief in their rights as English citizens. As you can see, the colonists brought with them different things, and it has to do with their rights as English citizens. By definition, a right is a moral or legal entitlement to have or obtain something or to act in a certain way. So these individuals that came from England brought with them certain things that they have been working on over a long period of time, from an absolute monarchy, which is an ultimate ruler over the land, to a constitutional monarchy, which limits the power of the king or king. As you can see, the word that is repeated throughout this is their rights. They had a firm belief in their rights as English citizens. First, number one, there's 6 of them. They had a firm right as English citizens to a trial by jury. So they brought over that with them as they started to colonize the United States. They brought with them rights of property owners. You can't just take something that's not yours. If it belongs to me, it belongs to me, especially if it is on my property. They brought with them their rights to bear arms. To protect themselves, to be able to protect themselves from tyrannical governments. They brought with them, number 4, they brought with them limits on the power of the king. They did not want to be ruled by an absolute monarch. They wanted the government and the king to be limited with their power. And 5th, they also wanted, they didn't want people just to tax them without some sort of representation in Parliament, which we'll expand on as a little bit later, and this will become more clear as far as representation when it comes in regards to taxation. They also came with them also, lastly, is their right to petition if they had an issue with the government. So This is real quick. Just wanted to run through that real fast as we head off to the next slide. You will see that the rights of English citizens, you will see that what they came with them is a seed, but not only real seeds, but they also came with them with seeds as far as their rights from what they have learned over years of being under English authority. English citizens in the 17th and 18th century immigrated to North American colonies and enjoyed more rights than any other people on earth.
Teachers and staff, please don't forget our faculty meeting.
And these rights had been earned over centuries of struggles between English kings and peasants. When the English came to America, they brought more than tools, furniture, and seeds. They came with them with. They wanted to also bring along their rights that they have struggled over centuries. These are the rights that they had earned over centuries of struggles between different English kings and peasants. Obviously, this is the metaphorically speaking, the seed that they brought with them, and obviously this seed sprouted into how they wanted to rule themselves into this new land that they are acquiring as a result of colonization. This is the model of self-government. So the first seed that we're going to go over, and I will show you what it's going to look like in your spiral here in a few minutes, but the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta, before the Magna Carta was written, there was an absolute monarchy, an absolute king who pretty much controlled everything. Then you had, after that, they decided to work through limiting the power of the king through something called the Magna Carta in 1215. This should be familiar to you, and this is now transferring from an absolute monarch to a constitutional monarch, meaning that he is now limited through a constitution or a binding contract about what he can and cannot do to the citizens. So King John granted English nobles several rights. He granted them several rights. Number one, he granted them, he granted them trial by jury. Sorry about that if it's messed up. The Magna Carta, 1215, King John granted the English nobles several rights, of which they are listed below: trial by jury, taxation only by consent, and also it limited the power of the monarchy, limited the power of the king. The second thing, there's also another document called the Petition of Rights in 1628. King Charles had decided to regain power for the throne by ignoring nobles and passing laws and taxes before consulting them. Citizens then forced King Charles to accept. They forced him, so the citizens took over and forced the king to accept the Petition of Rights. Finally, the nobles regained power, and the king had to have consent. He had to have consent of Parliament before passing a law. Then we get into the next document, which is also another seed. These again, one more time, these are what the colonists brought with them over to the new land as they are colonizing the 13 colonies of America. This one is the British Bill of Rights, 1689. Puritans had won control of the English government by killing the king, and the English people wanted a government by a monarch. The new monarch began ignoring people's rights, and the people forced him out and forced him to leave. They asked William and Mary to rule under a new set of rules called the English Bill of Rights. And these new English Bill of Rights included regular elections for Parliament. It included the rights for them to bear arms, the rights to a trial by jury, as well as protection from cruel and unusual punishment. Now, all of these we will be revisiting later on, especially as we get into the Constitution section our Constitution unit as we go over our Bill of Rights, which are our amendments to our Constitution. All right, so what we have here is our sack of seeds, which is going to be found on page 51. Inside, let me see if I can highlight these real fast for you. All the ones that are yellow, the Magna Carta, the Petition of Rights #2, Principles of English Law, Principles of English Law, English Bill of Rights, and the English Bill of Rights. Please put those, place those inside, on the outside of the seed. And I'll draw a real quick picture for you right here. Here's your seed. And then inside, on the outside, please write Magna Carta on the outside. I'm just giving you an example. And then inside of the seed, place the specific content of what the Magna Carta was indicating, such as this: the Magna Carta limited the power of the king. All right, this slide here is on page 51, and on page 51, if you could go ahead and finish up the seeds. You should have, I believe it is 2 English Bill of Rights. You should have 2 Principles of English Law, the Petition of Rights, and the Magna Carta. And then fill in, obviously, what some of the content was inside of those documents. So as I indicated before, the English Bill of Rights also gave a right to trial by jury. And so again, these are what the colonists are bringing with them as they are colonizing this new world, as they're colonizing America. This is going to lead us to representative government, and is how we are ruled today in our Constitution. All right, on the next page, on page 52, you're going to fill in each one of those leaves, and those leaves are representing what those seeds did on page 51 is they sprouted into our plant of representative government. It gave us, through these documents that the English had in their land and that they fought for, these documents provided many different things, such as you can see here, I'll hit play, you can see the House of Burgesses. It indicated and helped us out with the colonial courts, making a court system, New England town meetings, ownership of land by commoners, regular elections, colonial constitutions, free trade, as well as a militia, able to form militias if the government gets too big, as well as salutary neglect, which I'm going to go over. Salutary neglect on the next page in your spiral, on page 53. All right, so the last page, on page 53, please make sure that you have it titled How British Ruled Their Colonies. You should have in the yellow box in the top left the monarch, who is the king and queen rule. This is usually given to them through birthright, through divine or executive order, but this is something that is this is passed on through their family line. The next way that they ruled the colonies within their governmental system was that they had a prime minister and they also had a parliament. Now, parliament is a bicameral house, which means there were 2 houses that made decisions as far as the legislative understanding of how to make laws. So there on the left side, as you can see here as I hit play, hold on a second, bicameral means 2 houses. 2 houses. The first one is the House of Lords. This was usually the title was given to them from the king or queen, as in their close friends, such as peers, or they were titled through birth, such as princes and prince. They were princesses and princes. They were given their titles from the king or queen. And then on the other side of that, you have the House of Commons, which were just regular dudes, and they were very wealthy, but they didn't have any titles per se. But these are the ones that made decisions in Parliament. And Parliament also gave them the way to make a fair system and to make laws within their nation. Now, the colonies had a virtual representation in that when they were over here in the 13 colonies in America, we're talking 3,000 miles away. It wasn't really a fair system when you had some parliament was in England, and then you had also part of England also 3,000 miles away in the Americas. So not everyone could vote, just white men who would vote for all, including the colonists in oceans away. They were oceans away, and so they really didn't have much say in the voting process. That's why we call it virtual representation. Virtual reality is something that's not real, and so therefore they really didn't have much say in their voting process. Britain's method, obviously, though, was that the colonists were there in the New Americas for the purpose of mercantilism. The purpose of mercantilism to make Britain money. And that's the whole reason why they were over into these 13 colonies. And obviously, that equals power. Money always equals power. King George sees the colonies as a natural resource to plunder for his own gain. And finally, you see this word here, the salutary neglect, which is on your leaf, one of your leaves on page 52. Basically, he finally realizes that because we're 3,000 miles away, he kind of leaves the colonists alone to grow and make some kind of government within the 13 colonies, being 3,000 miles away. But his main goal, though, was for those colonies to make England money. But he kind of left them alone, government, and allowed them to self-govern themselves. All right. Now, with that said, after you are done with page 51, 52, and 53, if there's something that you missed or we ran out of time, I will be back, obviously, on Wednesday, and we will get you caught up. Or you can go to Canvas and go to the 8th grade spiral page and get caught up there. So other than that, I will see y'all on Wednesday, and make sure that you are doing your very best to get all these pages completed.